It seems like every franchise has a blemish on their record. Whether it's the Last Airbender movie for Avatar, the Percy Jackson film adaptations, the Hobbit trilogy for The Lord of the Rings, and for the Harry Potter series, it is the official sequel to the 7 books, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. It's become a running joke on this channel that I just bash on this book, which to be fair, it's so easy to do because there's so many things wrong with it. At this point, I've read this crappy book so many times for my job that I know it from back to front. I actually made a video where I rewrote the play trying to fix it, which got a lot of positive feedback. I'll link that down below if you want to check it out. But anyway, The Cursed Child was written in script form to be adapted as a stage play. It was written by John Tiffany and Jack Thorne, and it somehow got approved by J.K. Rowling, who made this official canon. Considering that the story breaks her lore at least 100 times and probably more, I would say that she was not part of the writing process. I think they just wrote her a check, she saw the payout, and she approved it without even looking at it. At least that's what it seems. If not, she just completely lost her touch. Now, I've seen this show on Broadway, and it's incredibly well made, incredibly well acted, and incredibly well executed, and it hits on all fronts but one: the story. If you didn't know, that's probably the most important part. Despite that though, I was able to find 10 things in this garbage play that were actually good, or somewhat good. If you enjoy this video, please consider liking and sharing. It will greatly help the channel with the algorithm. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and you can also follow me on all of my other social medias, all of which are linked down below, and all of which house similar content that I make here on this channel. Now that I've said that, let's get into it. I'm going to start by just giving a quick summary of the play. Harry's son Albus as well as Draco's son Scorpius become friends. Together, with the help of Voldemort and Bellatrix's daughter Delphi, the three of them go back in time using a time turner to save Cedric Diggory's life. They do this by making him lose the Triwizard Tournament, meaning he never touched the cup and never went to the graveyard where he was killed. They succeed in doing this, but Scorpius returns to a world where Voldemort was in power and Harry is dead. This is because after Cedric survived, he was so humiliated that he lost the tournament that he became a Death Eater. As a Death Eater, Cedric killed Neville Longbottom during the Battle of Hogwarts, which stopped Neville from killing Nagini, the final Horcrux, which meant that Voldemort won and killed Harry. Scorpius eventually sets time back to normal though, but upon returning, Delphi turns on them. She then takes the time turner and goes back to the night that Voldemort killed Harry's parents, hoping to introduce herself to her father. However, she's thwarted by the trio, Ginny and Draco. They all then return to the present and everything goes back to normal. This is just a quick summary of the play, but even from that you can see how ludicrous this plot is. But anyway, let's get into it. At number 10, I have Draco being jealous of the Golden Trio. Following a duel between Harry and Draco, the two sit and reflect. Here, Malfoy tells Harry that he always envied the trio's friendship, and he even knocks down Crabbe and Goyle, saying that they were just two lunks who wouldn't know one end of a broomstick from another. You, the three of you shone, you know? You liked each other, you had fun. I envied you, those friendships, more than anything else. I think this is a pretty touching scene, and one that is pretty faithful to the source material. The friendship Malfoy had with Crabbe and Goyle was neither fun nor genuine, so it makes sense that Draco would want something like what the trio had. Number 9. Harry being confronted by Amos Diggory, Cedric Diggory's father. While the conversation that Amos and Harry have is pretty powerful, there are also some pretty bad moments in it too. The biggest thing to point out is when Amos asks Harry to use his position in the Ministry to go back in time and stop his son Cedric from dying. But putting that aside and focusing on the touching and powerful moment, Amos says that Harry is dodging a meeting with him, and when Harry says he's not, he's just the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement and is responsible for a lot of other things. Amos replies saying, "There's plenty you're responsible for." Amos then becomes angry and asks if Harry even remembered Cedric. Harry takes a second to digest this, remembering that horrible night. Amos then screams at Harry, saying that Voldemort wanted him, not his son, and he brought up the words said right before his son's death, which Harry had told him about.
Kill the spare! Avada Kedavra!
The spare. My son, my beautiful son, was a spare. We then get to the nonsense about the time turner, but going to the end of the conversation, Amos says what is probably the best line in the whole play. How many people have died for the boy who lived? Dang. Thinking about that, whew. Number 8, Harry's baby blanket. We find out that the blanket Harry was wrapped in when he was left on the Dursleys' doorstep was kept by Petunia. Harry was incredibly surprised to find out that his aunt never got rid of it. It was among her possessions following her death, and when Dudley found it, he kindly sent it to Harry. This is honestly a great detail because it extends on Petunia's redemption, and on top of that, shows that Harry and Dudley are still on good terms all these years later. Number 7. Hermione becomes Minister of Magic. Hermione's ambition is one of her main attributes, so it's definitely not a stretch that she would eventually make it to the top. In canon and lore outside of the Cursed Child, we know that Hermione was very heavily involved in the Ministry. She was immediately thrust into a high ministry role, making major changes to the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, changing the way that witches and wizards treated non-humans. And following that, she became deputy head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, where she again played a vital role in the wizarding world. She restructured everything following the war, working directly with Kingsley Shacklebolt, the Minister of Magic, following the death of Voldemort. So it's only right that Hermione would be Kingsley's successor. It makes perfect sense. Number 6. Albus Potter and Scorpius Malfoy's friendship. I think that Harry and Draco's kids becoming best friends is a very intriguing plotline, and it kind of forces a shift between Harry and Draco themselves, who were of course mortal enemies their whole lives. There was a lot of bad writing for this friendship though. So much in fact that it led to people thinking that the two of them were gay. But the writers came out and said that this was not true, which is honestly something that they probably shouldn't have said because it shows that they're so bad at writing that everyone misinterpreted what they were trying to say. The overall idea of Albus and Scorpius being friends though is something that I really like. Number 5. Petunia visits her sister's grave. There's a dream sequence that I really like with Harry and Petunia where the two visit Lily and James's grave. When Harry looks down and sees loads of flowers on their gravestones, it makes him question what Petunia had told him about his parents being friendless and nobody liking them. And Petunia's reaction to this is very moving. Aunt Petunia looks around, she sees all the flowers as if for the first time, and it moves her hugely. She approaches and then sits by her sister's grave, trying hard to fight emotions as they come to her, but succumbing all the same. This is such a vulnerable moment, and honestly, I think it perfectly represents how Petunia felt about her sister deep down. Number 4. Harry speaks to Dumbledore's portrait. Now I have to preface, there are actually a lot of things that I don't like about this conversation. This includes Harry discrediting Dumbledore's help when he faced Voldemort, even though Dumbledore saved him pretty much every time except for maybe 2 of them. And I also disliked Harry getting mad at Dumbledore for sending him to the Dursleys, because Harry had actually been grateful for this by the 7th book, and even willingly went back following Dumbledore's death. However, I think that the good from this conversation outweighs the bad. There are some moments that are pretty great, including Dumbledore saying that he loved Harry, but that whenever he loved, people always got hurt, referring not only to Harry, but his sister Ariana, as well as his former lover Grindelwald. Harry then returns these words, saying that he loved Dumbledore back. I think this was one thing missing from the 7 books, and honestly, the first time I read the Deathly Hallows, I was just waiting for these words to come. Number 3. Harry relives his worst memory. How we got here is absolutely ridiculous and terrible writing, but putting that aside, it's actually a pretty powerful scene. On Halloween night 1981, the night that Harry's life changed forever, the adult Harry sits from afar and watches Voldemort enter the house, and as he does, both Ron and Hermione stand beside him, saying that he doesn't have to watch this alone. Then, as he watches his father be killed, his wife Ginny and his son Albus take either of his hands, and they hold him up as Harry begins to fall over. When Harry sees his mother in the window, he says that she's beautiful, and when she's killed, Harry fully collapses to the floor in a mess of grief. Facing this helped Harry move on from that fateful night that changed his life forever. Though getting to this scene is questionable, I can't deny that it's really powerful and honestly character altering. Number 2. Ron and Hermione renew their marriage. After Ron found out that in an alternate timeline, he and Hermione were not married, it really affected him. This led to him telling Hermione that he wanted to do a marriage renewal. He says that they were so young when they got married that they should do it over, especially because he was drunk for the first one and forgot most of it, which is a detail that I kind of hate and think is very out of character for Ron. But skipping over that, which seems to be something that I'm saying a lot in this video, pretty much everything that has something good has something bad with it too. But anyway, when Hermione agrees, she says that Ron is sweet, and the two then kiss, which wraps up a nice moment. And finally, number 1, the last of Dumbledore's army. Once again, how we got here is absolutely terrible writing. But again, putting that aside, in the alternate timeline where Voldemort won, Snape is still alive, which is the result of Cedric killing Neville. Not to kick a dead horse, but once again, this just shows a flaw in the writing. Why would Neville dying lead to Snape being spared? Either way, Voldemort was going to kill him to get the Elder Wand. But anyway, in this alternate timeline, we find out that Snape, Ron, and Hermione are the last of the Resistance. This then leads to a sequence that has a lot of great moments. Like Snape being moved that Harry named his son after him, and that Harry said he was the bravest man he had ever known.
And he was the bravest man I've ever known.
We also get a thrilling sequence as Ron, Hermione, and Snape help Scorpius get back to the official timeline to ensure that Voldemort does not win, and Ron and Hermione end up sacrificing themselves to do this, getting their souls sucked out by Dementors. And meanwhile, Snape helps Scorpius complete the mission, fighting off not only Dementors, but Umbridge as well. Right before Scorpius leaves, Snape says, "Tell Albus Severus, I'm proud he carries my name." The script then says that Snape is every inch a hero. Thanks to Snape sacrificing himself to the Dementors, Scorpius escapes, ending this awesome sequence. And that is 10 good things that came out of this garbage play. Let me know if you can think of any more, because I struggled to just get 10. That's all I have for you guys today though, so I will see you in the next video.